This guy looks successful, but he's psychologically limited. He grew his business from low six figures to pretty healthy seven figures. And now he's pulled between a variety of different options. On one hand, he's got this bold path ahead of him, really aggressive growth. It's what his heart really wants. It's working with these high profile, wealthy, exciting customers. It's a business that matches kind of who he wants to be, his status, his excitement, his purpose, and real intense, original personal interest. And if it works, it would be ludicrously lucrative too. But the key word there is if, because it's risky. And this is exactly the kind of decision that exposes whether someone has built real mental fitness or whether they've just built a business that ticks along. And it also threatens to destabilize what has created all this financial success in the first place. His business is, as it stands, pretty traditional, and he knows that his team are virtually at their limit. He's employing like good but not exceptional staff. He could, on the other hand, have this safe business. He could turn up every single day and just rinse and repeat. And he could be kind of wealthy, not true wealth, but rich and free, but ultimately he'd be starved of meaning. He's also aware that this hole in his market is not going to be a vacant hole for too long. Something is going to come along for that type of person that he wants to work with. So in our call, we begin to dig, to search for what's really happening, to dive into the contents of his mind, his feelings, his stories, his attitudes, his beliefs, and we're trying to uncover what's really going on. And beneath the surface was this like frenetic connection or collection of things that always drove him to be on call, always pushing, seeing every client all the time, being on, like going for them all the time, for his team just showing up. And it was the identity of a hustler, not the identity of an operator. To be honest, that model, that identity, was largely responsible for the business's growth originally. But he knew consciously that it was untenable for the future. It didn't really feel right. It didn't feel like it could operate for him in the long run. It just couldn't really go on any longer. And that's what he started saying. So we started digging deeper, because how can you have one thing that you believe but your actions say something else? So we began to dig that little bit deeper and deeper into those emotions that were driving that behavior. And what we found initially surprised him. It was fear. Fear was the emotion driving that behavior, and the story encapsulating that fear. He'd previously worked on a contract with a very, very large company, and that contract was a big contract. And that contract was responsible, in fact, for like a large portion of his company's revenue every single month. And to service this contract, they had to let some of their existing clients down a bit. They had to take their eye off the boil or kind of take their eye off the prize. I think that's the right phrase. And then, just as things seem to be kind of, okay, we've lost these clients, but hey, you know what? We've got this big one. The large contract was terminated just at the drop of the hat. And 2 months or 3 months later, after that agreement had finished, they were in a pretty dodgy place. And that sequence of events was buried in the back of his mind, and it was dictating how he saw the world. It was dictating his decision making. It was dictating that frenetic output, and all because he had this story wrapped up around what could happen in the future. And this was what was driving his need to be all over his company, to be looking at every single outcome, to have his finger in every pie. It was taking him out of that operator mentality and back into, in fact, that hustler mentality. That was the real problem. And this is why I'm not interested in surface level mindset work, because the problem is very rarely a business problem. Once this business owner saw what was driving his behavior in his business, he got a flash of illumination. But we know that mental fitness isn't built through these flashes of illumination, these sudden aha moments. And your performance mastery and your next level will not come from just knowing more about yourself and insight and self knowledge. Useful, interesting, but actual progress is built on sets and reps so that the physical structures established within your brain and your nervous system, and ultimately that dictate your psychology, so the way you feel, they can adapt. So here's what I've prescribed him with: the sets and the reps to build out a vision of a business that actually aligns with him, something that he feels stoked about in life, but also does not neglect, with turning his attention to this, something that both fulfills his needs and protects his security. So here's what I want you to take from this. Where there's friction, there's a story. What I mean by this is, in your business, growth, and actually all areas of life, growth is never going to feel easy. In fact, it shouldn't do. It should have resistance and difficulty, but it should feel aligned with who you are. It should feel like this is the best, most real, most authentic expression of me. The friction you feel in doubting your path or doubting yourself, in being pulled between different directions, or just not performing at the level you could do, is a sign that, hey, I've got something I need to work on. I need to pay attention to something. Your business is going to thrive on certainty and intentionality, not just hoping that the problem is going to solve itself, because, well, hope is not a strategy. Today, look for that friction in your life. Explore it. Get curious about what's causing it and dig into your subconscious world.